Okay, I'm delighted to welcome Tracey to the Sasuga podcast. So, Tracey, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure, thanks, Helen. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a joy to be hanging out with you. It'd be great in person, so it'd be nice when we can catch up or a coffee soon. But yes, my name's Tracey. I have been a long-term Tokyo resident. I don't call myself an expat. This is where I choose to live my life. I've been here 23 years next month. It's been a while, and I have a number of small businesses, none of which are going to make me a gazillionaire, but they all provide me a lifestyle which allows me to have a house and a life and good times with my family, and we have everything we need, and I don't have a boss, which I think is great.
Love it. Love it. Do you have a word of the year?
I do. I've been doing this for a number of years, and actually, I had them all just restrung onto a key ring, because I had them all on my key rings and they were getting unwieldy. And this year, my year is present. So be present, do more presentations, and also give more presents and receive more presents and be more present. So like multiple layers in there.
I love it. I actually did have that as a candidate for my word of the year as well, because I love the way that you can use it in so many ways. So
what is your word of the year?
My word is connection. So
Ooh, juicy, love it.
And a great one for at the moment, as we're coming out of the pandemic and able to start connecting a little bit more in person, which I am very, very excited about.
Me too, absolutely, me too.
So if we think about Sasuga success cycle, if we think about self-care, planning and communication and productivity, what's an area where you've maybe had a struggle in the past and you've learned something from it or got over that?
I've had a couple of pretty big struggles, mainly are all around the pandemic. We had a big 5-year plan for my business, which was short-term rentals, looking after inbound tourists. And we had
oh my goodness.
I know.
Well, let's just pause there because
Sure.
On that one, what was going through your mind in March of 2020 when you had you had the business up and running at that time, right?
Yeah, so the short-term rental business has been going since 2011, 2012. And it started as a side hustle, and we were the right place, right product, right time, and we took the opportunity and just jumped into the unknown, and it grew very fast. And we ended up with a 7-figure business. Wow. Quite by accident. And then I had to scramble to get all the systems in place, because it wasn't planned, it wasn't prepared. And then we did get a plan, or I did make a plan for a 5-year plan, culminating in 2020 in the Olympics that were coming to Tokyo. And all my decision making, everything was geared up to, all right, is this in line with our goal of 2020? Is this in line with our goal for 2020? Is this the right property for us to take on? And so yeah, it was all in place. And at the beginning of the beginning of 2020, everything was fine. We had multiple bookings, nearly the whole year booked out. The Olympics all booked out at Olympic prices, and we were just sitting back going, okay, this is our year to get paid. Small business owners, this is our year. Oh, the hubris. Oh, the hubris. And then it was around about this time, so around about Chinese New Year, when the borders started closing for China, and it was like everyone was going, oh, that's a bit of an overreaction, don't you think? Oh, it's only a small thing. Yeah. And I was in complete denial, because this wasn't in my plan.
Yeah.
And so what did I do?
I can't deny it. I love that.
I was in total denial. I had if it wasn't for my coach, I would have completely lost it. I really just sat on the living room floor for 3 weeks going, what has just happened? I was just trying to fight it. It was like, come on, this is nothing. I'm in denial. Oh, it was awful. It was just awful. And then, of course, hindsight was that I was wrong. And that's always a hard, bitter pill to swallow. It's like, oh, well, I was wrong. I was wrong about this. And then picking up the pieces from there. So it was a struggle. I won't lie. It was hard. And there was therapy involved and lots of coaching. The love and support from family and friends, and I would not have got through it without them.
Right. Well, I kind of took you maybe off course there, because you started off with a story and I sort of interrupted.
Oh, all good.
To me, so it's, I hear so many stories of those struggles that people went through. And I think it's important to share those so that we know that when struggles come along, because there are going to be more struggles in life, there always are, right? And the thing is that you get through it. So share that hope with everybody.
Well, what I guess what we learned was, okay, well, this is really the worst thing that's ever happened to us. And for starters, the whole world is going through something, their own version of that. So let's not just have a pity party for one. Let's just be realistic and not take it personally. Because for a long time, I took it really personally. But it was my fault. I shouldn't have had so much hubris. I shouldn't have been so, smug about, the year that I'd planned. So it's been a long journey to be a bit more, philosophical about it. But the borders are back open now. We looked at what business we could keep and which business we let go, and we're back in business again. So. Yeah, it didn't kill us, and it's only money. So that, I guess, that's the biggest lesson that we learned.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you can always make that back again.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Brilliant. So going back to the story that you originally started telling us, what you were I asked you about, or was that the story that you're going to go into about the struggle that you had?
Yeah, that was the struggle, and I think it took me it took me a long time to stop, because I really had been embedded in my plan, right? This was going to be my plan, and nothing was going to shake me off this goal. And things that were just bad luck, things that were out of my control, it took me a long time to recognize that it wasn't my fault, and that I needed to actually refocus and have a new plan. And I didn't want to let go of my old plan, because I was excited about it. And that's what I learned, was not to be so not to hang on to something that's just not going to work anymore.
So how does that play out in your life now, when you have plans and then things don't necessarily go to plan?
I don't take it personally. I try to look at it from above, like not to assign blame, but just to sort of be philosophical about it. Like, oh, well, how has this happened? Why has this happened? How can we then, what is salvageable, what's not salvageable, and not be emotional. So that's, I guess, what I've learned about that. And ask for help when you need it.
Okay.
Ask for help. Yes, don't try and take it on all your own.
Have you had a recent experience then where you've been able to use this?
I've been asking for more help. I've been looking for more, not trying to do everything myself, and also giving myself some grace when things haven't been so perfect. And I've just been learning a lot about, my own skills and my own failings, or the things that I need help on, and not to suffer in silence. So I'm a big fan of coaching. I'm a big fan of self-development, and I think that helps you keep moving forward, rather than wallowing and woe is me, and so yeah.
And kind of understand, like, hearing a little bit when others are like, so often we're looking at other people, we think everybody's got it all together. Like we were just talking before they started the recording, and you said to me, oh, Helen, you seem to have everything so organized, and I just started laughing. Because Like, it may look like that on the outside, but it's not necessarily all like that on the inside. I mean, I'm also, you know, a huge a fan and practitioner of personal development, and I'm always learning. So
yeah, and I think the other thing is,
and I think we've lost a bit of,
you know, in the same situation, and not to think that someone else is it better than me, or someone else is better than me. That's what I'm giving myself grace for, and I'm finding I'm getting a lot more done with less worry.
yes,
or maybe I'm getting the same amount done, but there's certainly a lot less worry about things now.
right.
Yeah.
And that makes, I mean, that's what I talk about a lot with less effort and more impact. And what
Exactly.
I'm talking about in terms of less effort, a lot of that effort is actually in people's heads, right? It's the mental struggle that we go through, thinking we have to do things this way. We're looking around at other people and comparing ourselves and thinking, oh, we have to do it that way. I was thinking of just at the weekend, I had one of my group coaching calls, and there was we got into a discussion about how when we get very busy in our daily life and our work, and then maybe we're not keeping the house as tidy as you might want to, and it was kind of interesting. Like, one person sort of very cautiously brought this up, and then everybody else is like, yes, it's the same, same kind of thing, right? And I also shared a story about, there was a Japanese family that I used to visit when I first came to Japan, and whenever I went round, the house was just, you know, immaculate. It was just beautifully clean, and I went around, you know, several times. It was beautiful. And then one day I was just in the neighborhood, and I went and knocked on the door, and the mother just sort of very sheepishly opened the door. And then she's like, I think she felt that she should let me in, and she did, and it was just such a mess. And I was like, she's like, Hazukashi, it's okay. So that you know, that sort of thing happens as well.
No, just giving each other some grace, and like giving ourselves grace, that, you know, like, not everyone has it together all the time, and that's okay.
So what else would you like to share with Sasuga podcast listeners and viewers today?
I think as well, to you know, rather than look at what you should be doing or could be doing, look at what, you know, listen to your nervous system as well. That's what I've found has been really really important. Like, your body will tell you when something is the right move, and, you know, when you try to you know, if you try to push against that, I think that's where the worry sets in, or the perfectionism sets in. So really, just, you know, take some time to listen to your nervous system. I spent a lot of time doing that, reflecting, and it very much helped settle the stress and the concern, because we all had so much stress during the pandemic. You know, there was a disease going around that none of us knew what was going to happen, and it wasn't just our various businesses or our various day-to-days that were affected. It was, you know, there's such unknown about our health and our families and our loved ones. It was a real strain on a lot of people's nervous system. So you know, yeah, so listening to what feels right, and if it doesn't feel right, then just take a break. I'm learning to take a lot more breaks.
What do you do for your breaks?
I listen to a lot of like, I go for a walk, and I listen to a lot of different things. But what I've tried to do is mix it up a little bit, and try to find some more beauty to listen to, rather than, oh, I've got to be learning all the time. I've got to have this strategy. I've got to learn. I've got to grow. You know, it's like, all right, let's just, you know, I've been listening to some podcasts of creative writing, of people describing their travel in Scotland. And there's a particular podcast writer who just her writing is just so delicious. I'm never going to go to Scotland. I'm never going to go and follow that trail, but just allowing myself to transport there is just, again, it's really delicious. And sometimes the writing is so beautiful that I just have to stop, put my hand on my heart and just go, oh. So it just felt really good. So just trying to mix it up and not feel like I have to be learning and growing the whole time, but do something that's just for pure joy.
What's the title of the podcast?
It's called Wild for Scotland.
Wild for Scotland. Okay,
yes,
we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yes, she's a creative writer. She's a travel writer, and she goes around to different islands and she camps and she looks at puffins and walks around craggy rocks and there's a flower and it's just beautiful. So I don't listen to a lot of fiction. I don't listen to a lot of that literature, but something that's sort of really deliciously written. Yeah.
That's interesting. I've attempted listening to fiction and it doesn't work for me. I prefer to listen to non-fiction. I prefer to actually
read fiction.
It's fiction. It's something interesting about that. Yeah. What about what are your mornings like? What do you have, like a morning routine?
Well, I have a 12-year-old, so let's just start right there. Who is he's just studying now for his entry exams into junior high school. So I think a lot of other listeners might have been through that journey before me.
And up as well for it's coming up for many
it's coming up for many. It's a journey. Because you've got to hold space for your child who's studying and going through all this stuff at 12, which is a lot. So of course my morning routine is making sure that, because he's it's like waking him up, getting him out of bed, and making sure that he's fed and then out the door, and then after that, that's when I can focus my time. I look at what I've got to do for the day. I have my breakfast, I have my coffee, and then I try to do something that's non-work straight away. I don't look at my phone. I might play a game. It's just something that's non-work while I'm having my coffee and my own eggs and bacon, and then I'll do whatever needs doing for the day. So every day is different for me. I don't go to the office. I don't have a boss. I've got things to do for houses. I've got guests that need communication. So my job's a lot of email. So I try not to look at my phone first thing in the morning.
Right. And what about as an owner of multiple businesses, you've got a lot that you want to get done. You talk about your plans. And what about when things don't go to plan? Like I know how it is often with kids, or for those who don't have kids, when there's other responsibilities that things come up. How do you react in those situations?
Sometimes not well. Sometimes not well. And then I try to acknowledge that and apologize if I haven't reacted well. But again, I unfortunately, a lot of the things that I need to do, if there's an emergency, it just gets pushed to the back, and then I get a little frustrated. So my nighttime routines are probably a little more important than my morning routine. So my nighttime routine, I'm often giving out tasks to the people who work with me. So I'm the most creative at nighttime. That's when I'm not a great morning person. I'm more of an afternoon. So if I have a thought, I'll start putting in some to-dos or some things or some follow-ups at night, because then that allows my team to get going. Like they've got something to get going with in the morning, and they know what my biorhythms are, and nothing I have is mission critical for my team. And so that allows me to be reactive if there's so at the moment it's quite cold, so sometimes the heat might be too much in a house and the electricity's popped off. So I need to have that freedom to be reactive if necessary. So I can go over to a house and reset the electricity or send someone else to do that. So I do have built into my expectations that, you know, I do need to drop things if there's an emergency. So
Right. This is great because, like, you know, so often we hear about morning routines and there's a lot of expectations for people to kind of, you know, get up and go and get everything done. I used to be very much a morning person and like really sort of Genki straight, you know, like bouncing out of bed very early and getting stuff done. And I found that as I'm aging gracefully, things are a little bit different. I don't kind of get up in the same way. I take things a little bit more gently in the morning. And I love the way that you point out that it's about your circadian rhythm. So I talk a lot about women and, you know, monthly cycle and how your hormones are up and down throughout the month. And then you also have your circadian rhythm as well. So it's really about, you know, do what works for you. And you, as you were saying before, listening to your body and understanding that we all have our this is a good way of working for us, and this may not be. It's not about paying attention to what other people do. It's do what works for you.
Exactly. Comparisonitis. I have issues with an inner critic, you know, and you can't give that. I have a name and she's called something that I can't say in public. Don't give her the power. Like, don't give her ammunition, because she's there waiting. She's there sitting there going, look, you know, anytime you think you're slipping up, it's like, see, I told you. Told you. So I just tell her to be quiet and go away. And you know, stop. You don't need to compare yourself to other people. I find I'm better with a ta-da list rather than a to-do list.
Yes.
So because I tend to be reactive. My job, I need to be reactive, and also the way my neurodiversity makes me, you know, a little crazy. So I need to reward myself.
Can you explain, because I know the to-do list concept, but for listeners or viewers who are not familiar with that, could you just explain it?
So I have obviously a list of things that I kind of want to get done during the day, but all these sort of 3 hit list things sort of don't work for me. So what I try to do at the end of the day is, like, as I said, my nighttime is where I really, really focus, and I write down the things that I've actually achieved, because sometimes you can go through a whole day running around like a crazy person and think, oh, I've got nothing done. Exactly. But if you write down a list of things that you've done, you can go, oh, ta-da, look what I've, like, you know. And it's just it's a way of rewarding yourself. It's like, you know, well done, you know. When you're a small business owner, you don't have a boss, I find I need to be my own champion as well, like, you know, and say, well done, you, look what you've done, look at what you've achieved. I just physically remind myself to stop and go, look at what you've achieved. So because it's hard. It's hard working for yourself, I won't lie.
Well, and I would say even in the corporate world, because so often you know, I'm speaking from my experience in the corporate world as well, and when you give yourself a hard time, again, because of all the comparisonitis, and you forget to reward yourself or acknowledge what you've done during the day. I have my goals for the day, and I also do the to-do list as well, because I have to do everything I possibly can to keep myself on track. You mentioned neurodiversity briefly. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Well, I'm learning about it. I'm waiting in line to actually get a diagnosis. But the more and more I sort of look at the different traits, that I'm recognizing that those are some of the things that I beat myself up about in the past. You know, you should be doing this. You could be doing better. I'm a very high functioning, very, you know, someone who does get a lot done. But, you know, there is that inner critic. I was going to say that bitch is just not a very nice person, like reminding me of all the things that I could be doing or should be doing. So that inner monologue has been a very strong part of my world. And I'm the more I'm reading about sort of ADHD in especially postmenopausal women, it's like, oh my God, I'm seeing myself here.
Right.
It's just like, this explains my life. And I'm feeling like, okay, well, I can give myself some grace here. It's like, it's not because I'm, I haven't done things right or well enough or good enough. So again, it's still a journey, Helen, still a journey. I'm still trying to, again, have all these little strategies that allow me to recognize all the things that I have achieved.
Absolutely. And I asked about the neurodiversity because I'm hearing more and more about neurodiversity. Sarah Faria mentioned it on the Sasuga podcast before.
Yes.
I've had, the other day I had a workshop and there was a Japanese lady and she came up to me afterwards and she's like, actually, I haven't said anything about neurodiversity in the workshop, but she came up to me and she said, well, because I was talking about, thoughts and how we talk to ourselves, kind of like what you're saying about the inner critic thing. And she says, yes, well, I'm neurodiverse. And so what you were talking about was really, really helpful for me. And I was like, oh, it's becoming much more talked about. And as well, I would say that recognizing that a lot of people struggle with this is really, really important, and to encourage not just women, men as well, to not give yourself such a hard time.
That's right. And the more you talk about it and the more you recognize that there are you seem to, I don't know, I seem to attract a lot of people that were neurodiverse. And there's a very good Japanese friend of mine, and she's a psychiatrist, and we were just talking, and then she's come to that conclusion on her own. She's a psychiatrist, and she's a medical doctor, so she's very high functioning, and it's just there's so much more information now, and I think there's a lot less stigma around it, I think. And again, it's more just learning and growing and personal development, and accepting that there are things that, if things don't work for other people, it doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you haven't found the right strategy for you, and to keep to keep finding one that works.
Do what works for you. And as you were saying earlier, reach out for help, whether it's help with friends or whether it's working with a coach or whatever it is, but reaching out for help is so
No, I've had a series of coaches for various stages of my life. Like, I've had business coaches, I've had system coaches, I've had, and depending on where you are, then picking the coach that actually is going to work with you through that, and then maybe finding another coach if there is something, if you've nailed that, going off and speaking to somebody else as well. Like, and I know you've had different coaches, I've had different coaches, and it's been great. I've learned amazing things and from all the different coaches that I've had, and I'm just so grateful. But and then once you've learned that skill or that structure, then okay, now that's on the next part of our journey.
What's next?
Yeah.
It's never ending, right? That's the fun of it. Love it. Anything else that you wanted to share with our Sasuga podcast listeners and viewers?
What are your listeners and viewers most interested in hearing about from say someone like myself, who's a like an import foreigner who's been living in Japan for a long time, running multiple businesses with like, what are people most curious about? Because I'm an open book. I'm like, not a woman of mystery, so
well, I think you've already shared a lot of what people are very interested in, which is like knowing what the genuine you is, knowing that it's okay to not be doing everything perfectly, and what we've talked about in terms of not comparing with others. So I think that's really really helpful.
And one thing I am really learning lately is that, you know, having worked for myself for a really long time, I haven't had that corporate, you know, review system every 6 months.
Yeah.
And so so for the longest time, I didn't think that I'd actually progressed or I'd missed out on, because I hadn't been working in corporate. It's like, oh, I've missed out on a whole bunch of learning or training or skills. And it took me to work with a coach to actually recognize, you know what, you've actually got some skills, you just haven't given yourself credit for them. And yeah, so for a long time I felt like I'd missed out. But then doing the to-do lists, doing the, you know, actually reflecting on, you know, I've done some stuff, and also listening to what people say, you know, I just think what I've learned is just, you know, like everybody knows that, but actually, you know what, I got some skills that other people don't know, and I need to acknowledge that more in myself. So none of this fake modesty, fake humility. It's you know, like I need to sort of step into my eldership and my power a little bit more, and lean into the fact that, you know, I know some stuff, and what I know can actually help some other people. So congratulate myself on that.
I love that. So it's the kind of the overarching theme for what we've been talking about now is the not comparing yourself with others, and really recognizing your own skills and your own achievements. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. Yeah, and not belittling them to yourself. Like, you know, don't you know, it's hard to sort of say, oh, you know, I know some stuff. It's hard to say that, because we're especially as women, we're really conditioned to, you know, to put ourselves behind, you know, put ourselves back. But, you know, we've got more talent that I think we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah. It can feel a little bit like hazukashi, or you don't want to you don't want to come across as if you're boasting.
Exactly.
But what I've discovered, I've gone through this exact same journey, is that I was really hesitant to sort of talk about what I could do. And now I have started to talk about that a lot more, and it's a comfort zone thing. You gradually step out, and little by little it gets easier and easier and easier, and then people actually respect you for it. They don't think that you're, you know, showing off or bragging.
Yeah, it's always important just to tell the truth as well. So, and I think what we as women do, you know, hide ourselves a little bit, because we're so used to people who tell lies and really boast, where we want to be the total opposite of that we, you know, that we don't let people see our skills and our qualities. So yeah, there needs to be a bit of a pendulum switch back. So
and it's for I don't have the Marianne Williamson quote fully in my head, but she talks about you know, that you shine so that you're able to let others, give others the space to shine as well.
Yes.
So that's so important. So Tracey, for listeners and viewers who would love to contact you, find out more about especially about, you know, because you have Airbnbs and other areas that you may be able to help people with, so where's the best place for them to contact you?
Well, I'm pretty much Tracey Northcott on all the channels, and like I'm not a woman of mystery. As I said before, I think you're going to have some show notes on where people can find me. My business is Tokyo Family Stays. So if you're coming to Tokyo and you're a family and you need, you know, what we specialize in providing a local experience. So not, you know, not a substitute for a hotel. It's like, if you want to know what it's like to live in a suburb, and each suburb of Tokyo is very different, the DNA is very different, then I'll help you like have that local experience. And so that's Tokyo Family Stays. But then you can also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook at Tracey Northcott. Yeah.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Tracey, for today. I think this is going to be very reassuring to a lot of listeners and viewers. So really appreciate that.
you can design your own life, and that's what we've really tried to do, is design a life that, you know, that we are comfortable, we're happy, and our son is just getting all the benefits of living in this fabulous country that we do. We're just really lucky.
Love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. See ya.